Hi everyone, good morning. Today is Friday, April 22nd. Greetings from the global economic north in another place. I'm currently with a very special friend of mine, and he called me up and he said, you know what, just let's go to Berlin. And I'm like, you got to be out of your mind, right? And I'm like, look, I got work to do, right? And he's like, no, what do you need to do, right? And I'm like, well, I got to get some manuscripts done, and I want to get some filming done, and there's some capital acquisition projects, things that I need to sort of get in progress. So he's like, okay, well, and then he explained to me that, things work this way, things could work this way, or things could be about nurturing your soul right now. So I was like, okay, the latter got me, right? So I was like, and he's not the type of person to say, well, you gotta wear this and you gotta speak this way, excuse me, and you gotta. He does not dictate to me. He makes me feel like it's so nice to be in love with love. So I'm just writing some thoughts. I have a board here, clipboard and legal size note paper. And what I'm trying to do with my videos, because these are like test videos, the first ones are, and then the second ones develop something from the first ones. And I have 406 videos right now, so that's 406 angles of something to start with. So that's pretty good, I think, for me. And to develop, your own work, right? And I was just thinking, you know what, I'm going to show, like, even how we do rituals. I want to start with, like, the individual perspective and then get into, okay, when you're with your significant other, whether it be of the opposite gender or the same gender, because we really have to work with our transgendered brothers and sisters as well. And the persons that are black, but they have no sex assignment due to some disgusting surgical procedures that was done on them to try and figure out, oh, what can we do with the little penis, or what can we do with the little vagina, and again, very sick people doing this to black people's bodies. So we have to work with our transgendered community as well. And I was just like, okay, I'm going to put this down, and I'm going to show and share with viewers, what I do when there is some kind of crisis in the community, or, something that just makes you feel like a wallop, meaning feeling just like you just need to take a pause. And what I do, I find this is a fabulous book. It's called Sisters of the Yam, and it's by Bell Hooks. I've given away so many of these copies, it's not even funny, and I only buy the purple ones. I don't buy that kind of red color one, but I was just reading the other day that this particular photo is of a woman who she was either in slavery or trying to show how it was for black women in slavery. So this has a lot of significance. And the way that she put this piece together is just so soul rebalancing, soul awakening, so spiritual in a non-religion way. Thank you. And I always go back to this book. So there's this piece that I always seem to gravitate to, so I'm going to read it again. And excuse me, as part of trying to process this situation with Mr. Prince. So, where is it? It says here, touching the earth. There's also a chapter here called Walking in the Spirit. Let me just see what that one says. So what I do is I go to the chapters and the table of contents, and I look and I'm like, okay, which one would resonate with me right now? And the one that I always refer to is one called Touching the Earth, and it's about how to reconnect with nature again, and how we are just so special people, where we've always been connected to nature, but we just didn't even know it, right? Because it was never an issue for us. So I'm going to see what chapter 13 says, called Walking in the Spirit, on page 141. And I don't even know what to say. I think today's Friday, so we're just going to get, I think I brought some incense or something, and I'm here with this special friend of mine. He's still, I don't know, maybe he's doing his stuff, because he's still sleeping. And 141, okay, hold on, Touching the Earth. Sorry, Walking in the Spirit. It's page 141. Oh, here we go, I'm on the wrong page. Sorry, okay, here we go. Walking in the Spirit, it says, writing was always a sanctuary for me in my wounded childhood, a place of confession, where nothing had to be hidden or kept secret. It has always been one of the healing places in my life. At the end of William Goyen's essay, Recovering, he states, it is clear that recovering life for me is a spiritual task. Like Goyen, I believe that writing is the work of spirit. Lately, when I am asked to talk about what has sustained me in my struggle for self-recovery, I have been more willing to talk openly about a life lived in the spirit than in the past. In part, I hear some birds. Hi, birds. In the past. In part, I have responded to the urgency, and I have witnessed in younger black females who speak with grave uncertainty and fear as they ponder whether or not they will be able to survive life's difficulties. And I have wanted to tell them the truth, that I am sustained by spiritual life, by my beliefs in divine spirits, what other folk often called higher powers. Paragraph 2. Spirituality, usually every morning I have some tea, and I brought some tea from Jamaica. It's some moringa leaf tea, so I wanted to surprise so-and-so with it, and we have our tea together when we're together. So, like I said, he's still sleeping, and I'm moving forward with this. So, this piece says, paragraph 2, spirituality sustains most black women I know who are engaged in recovery processes. For some of us, spiritual life is linked to traditional Christian faith. Others of us expand our horizons as we seek to give expression to our faith in gods, goddesses, or in higher powers like nature. In Feel the Fear and Do It Anyways, Susan Jeffers acknowledges that many non-religious folks are uncomfortable with the idea of the spiritual, or religion. Describing in a clear manner what is meant by this term, she explains, "When I speak of the spiritual, I speak of the higher self, the place within that is loving, kind, abundant, joyful. Throughout our history in this country, black women have relied on spirituality to sustain us, to renew our hope, to strengthen our faith." And that little beep is with we have like some alarm things here, and we also have a really nasty dog who will just kill you basically. So, to continue, this spirituality has often had a narrow dimension wherein we have internalized without question, dogmatic views of religious life informed by intense participation in patriarchal religious institutions. My purpose here is not to critique more conventional expressions of religious life. Indeed, the spiritual and the religious are not necessarily one and the same. My intent is to share the insight that cultivating spiritual life can enhance the self-recovery process and enable the healing of wounds. Jeffers suggests, "Too many of us seem to be searching for something out there to make our lives complete. We feel alienated, lonely, and empty. No matter what we do, we never feel fulfilled. This feeling of emptiness or intense loneliness is a clue that we are off course and that we need to correct our direction. Often we think that the correction lies in a new mate, house, car, job, or whatever. Not so. I believe what all of us are really searching for is this divine essence within ourselves." And then there's chapter, let me see here. I'm going to continue to read. It says, paragraph 3. "In fiction by contemporary black women writers, healing takes place only when black female characters find the divine spirit within and nurture it. This is true for Avery in Praise Song, for The Willow, for Celie in The Color Purple, for Baby Suggs in Beloved, for Indigo in Sassafras, Cypress and Indigo, and countless other characters. For some of these characters, spirituality is linked to Christian faith. For others, African and Caribbean religious traditions or spiritual traditions. And in some cases, like that of Shug in The Color Purple, a break must occur with Christianity in order for a new spirituality to emerge. Jeffers suggests that unless we consciously or unconsciously tap that spiritual part within ourselves, we will experience perpetual discontent. The same message is conveyed in black women's fiction. However, black women seeking healing want to know how we can actualize divine essence in our everyday lives. Living a life in spirit, where our habits of life of being enable us to hear our inner voices, to comprehend reality with both our hearts and our minds, puts us in touch with the divine essence. Practicing the art of loving is one way we sustain contact with our higher self. That's love of self. In Linnell Katie's essay, A Feminist Christian Vision, she suggests that the divine is not being, but rather the unifying of being. This is what she says, or this person says. The divine spirit of love motivates and empowers humans to see more clearly and to act more justly by identifying the self with that which lies beyond its narrow borders. Notice the correlation between the self and the divine in this theological vision. From this perspective, the self is not a substantial entity, complete and defined, but a reality always in the process of being created through the dynamic of love, which continually alters its boundaries and identity. Similarly, the divine is not perfected and completed being, but processes that seek to expand and perfect being. In Zora Neale Hurston's novel, Their Eyes Were Watching God, Janie is able to experience her divine essence through union with nature and then through the experience of erotic love. Yet she ultimately fashions a life in the spirit that is fundamentally rooted in her understanding of the value of human life and intersubjective communion where she experiences the unity of all life. Taking time to experience ourselves in solitude is one way we can regain a sense of the divine that can feel the spirit moving in our lives. Solitude is essential to the spiritual, for it is there that we can only commune with divine spirits, but also listen to our inner voice. One way to transform the lonely feeling that overwhelms some of us is to enter that lonely place and find there a stillness that enables us to hear the soul speak. Henry Nouwen in Out of Solitude reminds us to attend to our need for solitude. Somewhere we know that without a lonely place our lives are in danger. Somewhere we know that without silence words lose their meaning. That without listening, speaking no longer heals. Somewhere we know that without a lonely place our actions quickly become empty gestures. Black women have not focused sufficiently on our need for contemplative spaces. We are often too busy to find time for solitude, and yet it is in the stillness that we also learn how to be with ourselves in spirit of acceptance and peace. Then we re-enter community. We are able to extend this acceptance to others. Without knowing how to be alone, we cannot know how to be with others and sustain the necessary autonomy. Yet many of us live in fear of being alone. To meditate, to go into solitude and silence, we find a way to be empowered by aloneness. It is helpful to have days of silence, times that allow us to practice what Thich Nhat Hanh calls the miracle of mindfulness. He uses the term mindfulness to refer to keeping one's conscious alive to the present reality. Worry and stress often keeps us fixated on the future, so that we lose sight of the present, of what it means to be here and now. Mindfulness helps us find a way back to the present. Black women's lives are enriched when we are able to be fully aware and to be mindful. Meditation enhances our capacity to practice mindfulness and should not be dismissed. Black women who are more engaged with conventional religious life may find it helpful to engage both in silent and spoken prayer. In his essay, Pray for Your Own Discovery, Thomas Martin suggests that we seek God perfectly when we entertain silence in our hearts and listen for the voice of God. Prayer allows the individual to speak directly with God, with spirits and angels. In the act of prayer, individual black women who may have tremendous difficulty bearing their soul can find a space to speak, to pour out their hearts, longing, and in the act of praying gain a sense of direction. Prayers often guide, leading us into fuller awareness of who we are and what we are meant to do. Dreams can also serve as guides to the spirits. That's interesting. And it's interesting because they have these people called biomedical professionals, and they ask you like these questions, and this is based on sort of the data that comes to us. And even though you're expressing what you need to express because you want to get the fuck out, they take these aspirations, premonitions, visions, whatever you want to call them, something. They say that these dreams are really part of penis envy related to some guy who said, yes, everybody thinks of having sex with their parents, and yeah, as a man, it's okay to have sex with little girls. So, that is some real bullshit. And it's really nice, Bell Hook's piece here, that says that dreams can also serve as guides to spirits, which is true. We're very spiritual people in a non-religion way. And it continues to say, walking in the spirit, black women have had long traditions of dream interpretation, passing these skills from generation to generation. I grew up in a world of black women who were serious about the interpretation of dreams, who knew that dreams not only tell us what we need to know about the self, but guide us when we are lost. Yet when I went to college, I abandoned the practice of giving close attention to my dream life. I have returned to that practice, recognizing it to be a space of empowerment. When we are in need of greater self-understanding or guidance, it can be helpful to help keep a dream book, a notebook where we write down our dreams and our reflections and thoughts about them. Living a life in the spirit, whatever our practices, can help black women sustain ourselves as we chart new life journeys. Many of us have life ways very different from those any other generation of black women have known. Madonna Collins Wilschlag suggests in Lost in the Land of Oz that all women today will know seasons of loneliness unlike those experienced by previous generations, and says, women, more so than men, are trying out a new path. They have no role models or generational anchors to lean on in trying out a new story, and so it is scary and lonely. The orphaned woman has broken with many of the old codes of normality, but has not yet found what will take its place. Nurturing our spiritual selves, we can find within the courage to sustain new journeys and the will to invent new ways to live and view the world. In the feminist mystique, Mary Giles invites us to celebrate this positionality where we are poised between the old and the new, and urges us to be guided by a dynamic love. To live and to love and to create are one. In living, loving, and creating, we move in mystery, alert to possibility, bereft of models from the past, and without hint of one to come. In the essence of models, we experience absolute freedom, and in freedom, risk, responsibility, and the joy of being open to whatever the moment may bring forth in us. Certainly, black women seeking self-recovery are charting new journeys. Although I have read countless self-help books, the vast majority do not acknowledge the existence of black people, which is true. It is a new journey for black women to begin to write and talk more openly about aspects of our reality that are not talked about. At times I found writing about some of the issues in this book very saddening, and I would say to Tanya, my play daughter and comrade, when I felt writing this book would break my heart, we talked often about why individuals who suffer intensely often cannot find ways to give their anguish words. To speak about certain pain is also to remember them. And in the act of remembering, we are called to relive, to know again, much that we would suppress and forget. This book hardly speaks to all needs to be said, and yet so much of it was hard to say. And sisters have said to me, aren't you afraid that black people will punish you for saying things about black experience they feel not be said? I gain courage from my spiritual life, from the sense that I am called in writing to give testimony. That is my spiritual vocation. I call to mind the biblical passage from Romans that says, do not be conformed to this world, yet be transferred by the renewing of your mind, that you may know what the will of God is. Reading inspirational writing is an essential part of self-recovery. We are sustained by one another's testimony when we find ourselves faltering or falling into despair. Although I had been thinking for years I would write this book, it never came. And that's interesting because it's the same for me. Like, oh, all my genetic stuff from 1980, geez, from the mid-80s. I think 1986 actually. That's when I started, like, my little teeny books about genetics, and 30 years. So, thoughts, ideas, and memories were inside me. But they did not manifest themselves in words. Suddenly, in the past months, black women are asking me where they could find the Sisters of the Yam book. And there would be such disappointment when I would say that it has not been written. Wow. It's beautiful. Again, it was a sense of urgency I felt from sister comrades that made me think, now is the time. Yet, as the writing progressed, I began to feel depressed and frustrated that other plans had fallen through. One evening, as I sat in stillness, I heard an inner voice telling me that I was meant to be here in my house doing this book right now. And I felt peaceful and calm. This, to me, is a manifestation in the power that comes from living a life in the Spirit. In his essay, Healing the Heart of Justice, Victor Lewis shares the insight that it is necessary for us to move against fear and despair to embrace healing visions. To value ourselves rightfully, infinitely, released from shame and self-rejection, implies knowing that we are claimed by the totality of life. To share in a loving community and vision that magnifies our strength and banishes fear and despair, here we find the solid ground from which justice can flow like a mighty stream. Here we find the fire which burns away the confusion that oppression heaped upon us during our childhood weakness. Here we can see what needs to be done and find the strength to do it. To value ourselves rightly, to love one another, this is to heal the heart of justice. The purpose of writing this was to add to that growing body of literature that hopes to enable us to value ourselves rightly and fully. In spiritual solidarity, black women have the potential to be a community of faith that acts collectively to transform our world. When we heal the woundedness inside us, when we attend to the inner love-seeking, love-starved child, we make ourselves ready to enter more fully into community. We can experience the totality of life because we have become fully life-affirming. Like our ancestors, using our powers to the fullest, we share the secrets of healing and come to know sustained joy. Thank you so much for tuning in. That was chapter 13, titled Walking in the Spirit of Sisters of the Yam by Bell Hooks. Take some time to ponder what you do to process death grievances, again, in the chocolate community. By chocolate, I mean black. And I don't cry. I don't cry. People are like, how come you're not crying? Well, maybe because I'm trying to celebrate the life of the person, or trying to understand what really happened here. So on that note, again, thank you for watching my videos. I do welcome plus and negative and balancing commentary. And what I'll do is I'll do more video responses because that seems to work a little bit better. That methodology works a little bit better than, for example, running down and getting on the net and, just like, okay, let me, I'll do the video commentaries. So, walk in your spirit today, tomorrow, this year, next year, this human life, the next lives. Thank you so much for watching, and I don't know what else to say, but I'm going to take it easy today, and we're going to take it easy today. I think we're going to get some really nice candles and some wood logs and cut out little holes and, just light our place with lots of candles. And if we can't find the beeswax candles, well, you know what, we're going to get what we need to get. And that's how we do. Thanks for watching, and have yourselves a really nice morning, evening,